In our country, we have this situation where we have a group of people who are solving their private problem about how to make themselves feel safe in a way that exerts an externality. And we're not dealing with that externality.
You mean the externality of people feeling less safe?
Yes, and being less safe. There is data that says that, for example, if a household has a gun, that gun is more likely to be used to kill or harm the residents of that household than it is to be used to protect anybody in that household.
Last I looked, I think 64% of handgun deaths were suicides.
Yes, yes.
I have a friend who does a fair amount of work with suicidality, and there's been much talk about the differing rates and how men commit suicide at higher rates than women. But I guess the real data shows that men and women attempt suicide at the same rate, but that men are much more likely to use guns.
And they're more successful.
Right.
When you use a gun, you're more successful. When it comes to pollution, when we have a company that's dumping sulfur into the air and the people around them are getting asthma, you know, not only do we regulate that, but there is an understanding of how a free market works that says if we don't regulate that, we degrade our free market. Our free market depends upon us ensuring that everybody gets the fruit of their own labor and everybody bears the cost of their actions. So this sense of personal responsibility, like I get what I've earned, but I pay what I've inflicted. And if that isn't the case, we're supposed to regulate.
Are you suggesting that there would be some sort of maybe gun tax that would be proportional to the amount of economic damage done per pistol or weapon in the U.S.?
I am saying that we should be more serious about regulating it. And there's many ways to figure that out. Once we decide we are going to treat this as an externality and treat it the same way we treat pollution. There's two ways with pollution. We can ask the company to stop polluting, so change his process so he's not polluting as much, or we can tax that pollution so that at least that, he's feeling the burden of that cost, which encourages him to pollute less. So it's an indirect way of polluting less. And then we can use that tax money to pay for the the harm that has been inflicted. Now, so either one of those can work. I mean, I envision a system where it's just like a car. If you want to own a car, you pay tax.
There are quantifiable, or at least reasonably quantifiable, costs to suicidality, loss of income to a family, et al. But how does one begin to even think about quantifying the cost of a sense of safety and security?
Well, you can't necessarily. Similarly with pollution, you cannot necessarily cost out like the inconvenience of somebody who lives a life with asthma, or somebody who, there are some studies that say that certain types of like permanent disabilities will come to somebody if they've been exposed to pollution while young or in utero. And how do we cost that out? We cannot necessarily, but what we can do is use economic incentives to lower the incidence of the pollution, lower the incidence of the externality, in this case, lower the incidence of gun ownership. Maybe just like having people, have to take a training course in using a gun, maybe we can also require them, this is farcical, I don't really believe this would ever happen, but we can require them to find other ways to solve their safety problem. For example, I have a mindfulness and meditation practice, and I every day meditate on the feeling of safety. So even though I am out there with the same violence statistics that faces everybody in my neighborhood, I feel very safe.
All right, so I think I hear you saying what my U Chicago pals always say, or at least the economic ones, is that in economics there are always options.
There are always options.
Right.
There absolutely are, because markets always adjust. It's a large system, and there's always adjustments to be made.
Well, I got to tell you, Judy Lubin, University of Chicago economist, what a delightful, interesting way to think about this whole tragedy. And I very, very, very much appreciate your time. And I hope that you'll talk with us again some other time.
Thank you.